Welcome to Spicer and Company. I'm Sean Spicer.
And I'm Lindsay Keith. Well, we have Kellyanne Conway joining us later and Pastor Nick Hall, but we also want to talk about a bombshell announcement. The case against former United States National Security Advisor Michael Flynn has been dropped.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to have a lot to say about that. And we're going to spend some time talking about one of my favorite topics later, calling out the liberal media for their selective memories. There was a show-stopping moment with White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany in yesterday's press briefing. We're going to break it all down for you a little later, and you're going to love this. But I just want to show you a tiny slice of how this thing ended.
I'll leave you with those questions, and maybe you'll have some answers in a few days.
Yep. Kayleigh,
thank you very much.
You were prepared for that.
Did you catch that line? You were prepared for that, huh? You bet she was. I can't wait to show you what led up to that. The way that she turned the tables on the media was something to behold. But before that, we have a special guest for you tonight. Kellyanne Conway, as you may know, serves as counselor to the president. We had an opportunity to speak to her earlier today. Kellyanne, welcome to the show.
Hey, Sean, it's great to be with you. Congratulations on your successful show.
Thank you very much. Kellyanne, today is the National Day of Prayer. The White House generally would have a ton of people filling the Rose Garden or some room in the White House. Times are different right now. How are you guys adjusting to this, especially during this period when so many people are leaning on their faith to get through?
Yeah, so this is the fourth National Day of Prayer during President Trump's tenure here at the White House. And this year, in a similar fashion, he recognized people of all faith, and he is talking about the centrality of prayer in our lives. This is also the first president in American history to raise the issue of religious freedom in a special session at the United Nations General Assembly last fall. So he fully acknowledges the role of prayer in our lives. And I have to say, this year it takes on special significance and consequence, Sean, because we are in the middle of COVID-19. We're all going through this global pandemic together, and people are leaning on prayer and faith, and that's why so many of them are curious to know what their states and communities are doing about reopening places of worship as those states reopen their economies. It's incredibly important for people to be communal, to go and participate in these services. We know the physical structures of our synagogues, our mosques, our churches. They are very large in many places and spaces, and so you can socially distance, and you can have more than the 50 or so people that Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois said he's going to limit it to. We need our prayer. We need the humility, humanity, ask for grace and mercy, healing. And I think part of that prayerfulness has shown you what a remarkable outpouring of volunteerism and selflessness we've seen all across this country. People filling the food banks and the blood banks, checking on the elders in their lives, volunteering, seeing how they can step up and step in at this time of great uncertainty and loss.
Yeah, there's another big thing going on at the White House today. President Trump has been meeting with governors for quite a while. Today, he met with Governor Greg Abbott of Texas. Kellyanne, there's a lot of discussion about who should be leading this effort. I know the White House and the president have been talking about the need for governors to take a state approach to this. There's been a lot of talk about whether or not there should be some federal guidelines, though, and whether or not the federal government should have some basics that states should follow. What is he telling people like Governor Abbott as they try to address their state's needs?
Sure. We were really pleased today to welcome Governor Abbott and members of his Texas government here to the White House. That's probably the fifth or sixth governor, Democrat and Republican, has visited in just the last 2 weeks. Sean, you're absolutely correct. So we know governors want to take the lead. They've made that very clear. We're up to 40 governors who have said that they have actual plans and an intent to reopen their state's economy. You have some governors, like the 5 who wrote an op-ed just this week in the Midwest, saying they never completely shut down their state's economies. So all the infection rates obviously haven't been the same. There's no one size fits all. But as we gradually and safely reopen, the president has made clear he wants these governors to continue to consult with him, the vice president, members of the task force, which include economists, doctors and scientists, and other cabinet members. But at the same time, he knows that the governors know best which parts of the state have outbreaks, which ones have higher infection rates. Do they all have the surge capacity you would need if, God forbid, there was a new outbreak? Do you have the PPE and the ICU bed capacity, the ventilators, the healthcare personnel? We're up to 40 governors for a reason. those governors, right, left, and center, understand how important it is to not have some national shutdown. That causes its own ill effects. We're very concerned about what we see in the data: an increase in mental health challenges, in child and spousal abuse, and drug abuse, people feeling isolated and economically desperate. And so we see a spike up in these behaviors. There's been a 24% increase in alcohol sales, for example. And so even if people are using that legally or illegally, if they're younger, the fact is that, as the president says, you can't have the cure be worse than the disease. But this president continues to fight alongside the governors on the dual medical and financial crises. And we're very happy these governors, they're either visiting here and talking about it directly with the cameras on, Sean, or they're presenting their plans to us. Nobody will be turned away if they want to present their plan for reopening to us. Those guidelines are there. They were released on April 16th. There are 3 phases for reopening, and we would commend everybody's attention to it. It's a public document.
Kellyanne, let me switch gears for a moment. The President Obama's lawyers have sent a letter to the Senate saying that documents that they want regarding Joe Biden's involvement in Ukraine are something that they have a concern with. Let me show you what they said about this information that is being sought by the Senate. They write that Biden is giving Russian is an effort that the Senate is undergoing is an effort to boost Russian disinformation, meaning that these senators who are trying to get information about what went on with Joe Biden and potentially his son Hunter Biden during the Obama administration, that any effort to look into this is helping the Russians. Do you agree with that?
No, not at all. And wow, it's really good to hear President Obama mention Joe Biden's name at all. He really has been terrible to him. He's mistreated his former vice president. President Trump was better to Joe Biden when they had a phone call here a couple weeks ago, Sean, than President. Isn't it ironic that President Obama would talk about Joe Biden in the context of President Obama? He doesn't want us to relitigate and reopen the Obama-Biden legacy on so many areas, but particularly Ukraine, China. If you go back and you look at Ukraine in the portfolio of Obama's Vice President Joe Biden at the time when Hunter Biden was getting these sweetheart deals, we know Joe Biden has no energy, but Hunter Biden had no energy experience and yet had this sweetheart deal. Same thing goes with China. Yeah. Do they really want us to talk about their failures in China? We had a $500 billion trade deficit. They were pumping their fentanyl synthetically in their factories and out into our communities and our kids' veins. And so I think that's what this is about. I would like to hear from President Obama on what he thinks about Tara Reade. Does he think she's got any credibility? Does he think that, as we're talking about personal papers from presidencies and senates, whether she should be heard, whether we should get those papers released? Inquiring minds want to know.
So let me ask you this, if I can. There is yesterday, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos put out new guidelines under Title IX, which are intended to help give schools from kindergarten through college a way to address allegations of sexual assault. So how the accuser and how the accused have to deal with it. Many talk about how these created a fairer system. So now there's a system in place about how the accused, what rights the accused has in terms of being able to face their accuser, them not having the person who investigates it oversee the adjudication of it. Right off the bat, Joe Biden came out and said, I'm going to undo these, which I thought was interesting because he's been accused of something, and what he wants to undo would have given him the exact thing that he's being asked for, which is an investigation into the allegations. It seemed odd that a guy that's being challenged about sexual improprieties is now saying that I'm going to undo the law that would give the accused an opportunity to have an investigation, which is what he's asked for.
Which means, Sean, you've already talked more articulately, more explicitly, more intelligently, and gave more thought than he has to this issue. He read whatever was on the cue card in front of him. Whoever did that got this wrong, because they automatically say, I'm with the woman, unless, of course, she's Tara Reade and other women like her accusing Democrats. He's dead wrong on this. The Title IX that Secretary DeVos put out, this actually, you said it perfectly, Sean. It helps both the accused and the accuser, the alleged victim here. So there are many more I think protections for the victim can, if you read it, the regs, the victim can actually have more of a say into how the school handles that particular claim. But we also have to have due process rights for the accused. We can't, I know that way back when, a year ago, the feminists said believe all women. But if we do that and people don't have due process rights on a college campus or in a high school, then we're simply abrogating somebody's rights that they would have in a regular court of law. You know what's ironic about what Joe Biden said? He actually thinks that somehow the people who are attacking these Title IX regs, they actually think that Joe Biden.
All right. Obviously, we're having some technical difficulties. Thank you, Kellyanne, for joining us. We are going to head to break, but when we return, our company weighs in on the charges against Michael Flynn being dropped by the Department of Justice.